All right, so let's start with the chapter number 5, Allocation and Apportionment. And we have discussed last week the chapter overview. So today I'm going to straight away go inside of the chapters. And the first thing we'll see here, there is a few definition. What is absorption costing? And we will know absorption costing later on more because we have a complete chapter that is called absorption costing. So there are some definition of the overhead, what is overhead. But from this chapter, the main thing we are looking for, that is the allocation and the apportionment. So we have to know how exactly we allocate the overhead. Now we have a different type of cost. We already know we have a direct cost and we have an indirect cost. The direct cost that can be allocated directly to the department. For example, let's say if I said we have two department, so 500 pound or 500 pound cost for department A and 500 pound cost for department B, and maybe the rent is shared by both buildings, so you don't know how much is the rent for what. So this cost need to be shared. So some of the cost we need to be shared, and this type of cost basically is called like we have the overhead. So anything that is direct cost that could be directly allocated to the production center, and something that we cannot directly allocate, we have to use some basis, and that basis is basically the way we can do apportionment. Now, the simple way I can say we have two types of cost. One is direct cost, one is the indirect cost. And the indirect cost, we called it overhead. So if anything is the indirect cost, we called it overhead. For example, rent, rate, advertising cost, finance cost, then admin cost. This type of cost is basically the overhead for the company. So let's have a look what is basically the way we apportion and reapportion the cost. So we have a diagram here. Let's try to understand this diagram. The first one, we have overhead. We know what is overhead. Overhead is the indirect cost. So all the overheads are the indirect cost. Now the overhead can be two types. The first one, that can be directly allocated to the production cost center. For example, this one. So some of the overheads that I can directly allocate to the production cost center, some overhead goes to the service cost center. For example, last week I gave example for Argos. We said Argos sell the product, but this product come from a different companies, and these companies give some warranty or guarantee. So if anything happen within 1 year, 2 year, they will repair it or they will replace it. They will do something to fix it. Now the people who do the repair work, they don't get paid. So of course, like the money basically come from selling the product, not because of the repairing. So this is very, very important to understand. The production department, they basically produce the product, they sell it. So actually income come from the product, not from the service. But the service department have a cost. Now who going to pay for the service department cost? So at the end, the service department cost has to be included inside of the product. So let's say, for example, I have a product X and Y, and I have a repair department that is maintenance. Now, this two product, whatever is the cost, 10 and 10. And the maintenance department also have a cost 2. Now the question is, who going to bear this £2 cost? Because X and Y, they will sell this product and they will cover the cost, they will make some profit. But the maintenance department, they don't sell anything, they have just a cost. They don't sell anything, they just have a cost. So how come they can basically recover this cost? So that will be later on, this £2 they'll split to X and they'll split to Y. So basically any service cost, any service department cost, like a maintenance store or canteen, any service department cost, later on we have to transfer to the production department. So we can see here overhead that we can allocate directly. The next one is service department cost. We can see it here. And the service department cost, we basically reapportion again to the production cost center. So reapportion to the production cost center. And after that, the total gives me the unit cost. So when I said how much is the unit cost, that will be the combination of the overhead from the production and from the service both. Even though the service don't have any income, so service department costs need to bear by the production department. So let's have a look some definition. What is the definition we have? So we have four things that we need to learn. The first thing is allocation. Allocation, when I'm very sure this cost belongs to that department. For example, I have a three department, A, B, and C. Now let's say the department A need a computer. So department A need a PC and the cost is 500. So I'm very sure I can understand this 500 cost will come to department A, not B, not C, because I can allocate it directly. I can see it. This PC will go to the department A, and obviously they have to spend the cost. So this cost belongs to them. So when I'm very sure this cost belongs to this department, that is called allocation. If you quickly read the definition, it said this is where total overhead are charged to the relevant cost center in full. So rather than split the cost, rather than divide the cost, I took the whole cost and include in the relevant department. So rather than I divide the cost and I said, this is portion for you, this portion for you, and that portion for you, I actually give the whole cost a single department. So that is called allocation. For that, I have to be very sure this cost belongs to that. Now, for example, if I buy this computer for department A, and if I share the cost to X and Y will not be happy. They will say, listen, this computer is not for our department. You giving the computer to department A, so of course we have to give the cost to department A, not to X and Y. So they're not going to bear the cost. The next one we have apportionment. So when I share the overhead between few department, let's say ABC, and we have a rent. Now ABC, these three department, they use the whole building, and the rent is £5,000. So this £5,000 will be split between A, B, and C. So all three department, they have to share the rent, and this is called apportionment. Let's look at the definition. It says overheads are shared across each cost center using a fair basis. Now the question here is fair basis. What does that mean? The fair basis. The fair basis means most suitable basis. That means, for example, we have a three department A, B, and C. And let's say A use this amount of portion of the building, and B and C use the most of the portion of the building. Now, if we have a 6,000 rent, and we said A have to pay 2,000, B have to pay 2,000, and C have to pay 2,000. Now, everyone of us, we can see this is not fair, isn't it? Because A are using very small portion. Why he going to share the equal amount? So he need to pay the square space or the square meter he use. So we say I'm not gonna use A will say I'm not gonna pay 2,000 because I'm using very little portion. So I will split the whole building, how big it is, and what is my portion. I'm going to pay only that cost. So obviously that will be split using a fair basis. So fair basis means you only pay or you only share the cost. That's basically you are using, not just like equally like everyone. The next one we have number 3, that is called reapportionment. So you can see the word reapportionment. That means I already apportioned, then I will do it again. For example, let's say we said like we have £5,000, and let's say we have to give to someone, a supplier. So rather than I give £5,000 cash to the supplier, I deposit to the bank, and from the bank I transfer it to the supplier. So what's happening here? First, I deposit the money to the bank, and from the bank I transfer to the supplier. So first I apportion to the bank, and from the bank I reapportion to the supplier. So when we have a cost and some cost we split to the service cost center, and later on that cost we reapportion back to the production department, because service cost center, they don't have any income at all. They have only the cost. So at the beginning we share some cost with the service department, but before we close and before we get the ultimate figure how much is the cost, we bring all the service department cost to the production department, and we identify how much is the unit cost. So this is called reapportionment. Reapportionment means bring all the service department overhead to the production department. The finally you have absorption. Once I have everything, I added everything, that will give me the absorption. It's the production cost. Production cost center overhead are absorbed into the cost unit using a suitable basis. Now, the suitable basis could be anything we're going to see later on, but for the time being, I want to say production cost center or overhead are absorbed. Now, this word is very, very technical word, absorbed. Absorbed. For example, let's say if we have a sponge, sometimes like in the kitchen we have a sponge, we clean the water, and the water basically soaked by the sponge. So if we basically put the sponge on the water is soaked by the sponge. So basically if I said how much water the sponge absorbed, how much water the sponge absorbed, that will tell me the quantity of the water. So if I squeeze the sponge and if I see there's a lot of water, let's say 20 gram or 200 gram water come out from there. So basically this sponge absorbed 20 or 200 gram water. So when we allocate the overhead, we have to see how much I absorbed, because the management accounting, remember, is all estimate. The management accounting is nothing the real figure. So we basically plan. Management account is all about plan for the future. We think what will happen in the future, how much will be the cost, how much will be the selling price. Is everything is forecast, is everything is expected and expected, and the real life is not same. We can go very close, but we cannot be 100% accurate. I cannot say my cost will be 10,220 pence and it will be exactly that. It cannot be possible. So whatever the overhead I estimated, when I have the actual figure on my hand, so I have to find the difference. The main job of the management accountant to do the comparison. The comparison between what? The comparison between the budgeted and the actual. So when we absorbed anything, we have to see what is the actual result, and after that we can make the comparison. So we can say is it more or is it less. So if it is less what I have absorbed, that is called under absorbed. What if I absorb more than the actual, this is called over absorbed. We're going to see later on, so don't have to be worried about. We need to see there is two words. One is called under absorbed, one is called over absorbed. So we have to ask myself, if I absorb less it is under absorbed, if I absorb more, that is over absorbed. All right, so let's move on. Okay, that's very good news, Kurt, if you get it really easy, but I hope you'll get easy in the exam as well. Okay, so let's try to do the activity one together. Everyone try so that we can do the question together, and once we finish the chapter we feel we done the revision as well at the same time. So the first one we have allocation. Let's talk about allocation, the activity one. Below are some overhead costs for a business for the last month. This business include a cost center for department A and a cost center for department B. So we have a two cost center A and cost center B. Now let's have a look. Using the pick list, decide whether the indirect cost can be allocated or not, and which cost center they should be allocated to. So they give us some cost, and they are asking us which cost can be directly allocated, which cost cannot be directly allocated. We have a two department, department A and department B. So we need to see that. Let's have a look. reabsorbed. We will do the absorption later on, Luis. For the time being, let's focus on the allocation. So first one, we have wages of supervisor of department A. We have a pick list. So from the pick list, we have to pick. We have to pick either allocate to department A, allocate to department B, or cannot be allocated. We have to choose one out of these three. The first one, they said wages of supervisor of department A. So the wages of the supervisor of department A. Now we have three things: allocate to department A, allocate to department B, or cannot be allocated. So if I give this supervisor of department A salary or wages to department B, they will tell me, why are you giving the other department cost to me? And I know this cost, this salary and wages exactly for the department of A, so I can allocate directly. I said, yes, allocate to department A. Allocate to department A. The next one is wages of supervisor of department B. So basically, the next question said all these wages we have, that is for all the supervisor of department B. So what will be the answer from the pick list? Allocate to department B, allocate to department A, or cannot be allocated. So we said that will be B, isn't it? Allocate to department B. Allocate to department B. Very good. The next one we have indirect material consumed in department A. Indirect materials consumed in department A. What will be the answer? Allocate to A, allocate to B, or cannot be allocate? So he said allocate to A because the question tell me this cost belongs to the department A. So we said okay, so allocate to department A. All right, very good. And the last one we have here, rent of the factory shared by department A and B. Now this is the problem, isn't it? So the rent for the whole factory shared by two departments. Now if I give this cost to department A only, the department A will not be happy. If I give this cost to department B only, he will not be happy because both of them share the building, the costs need to be shared. So we cannot allocate. It has to be apportioned, isn't it? It cannot be allocate. So he said cannot be allocate. Cannot be allocate because that has to be apportioned between the two departments. So we are just starting, you see, like this is basically we are getting slowly. So we now understand the allocation. Now we move to the next point, that is apportionment. Let's move on to the apportionment. So here we're going to see what is the suitable basis for the apportionment. So what is the best basis we can use when you do the apportionment? Apportionment means splitting the cost, dividing the cost between the different departments. So let's have a look. Everyone try. So we have below there are overheads cost for a business for the last month. Okay. Requirement. Using the pick list, choose the most appropriate basis of apportionment for each of the costs. We have a rent, rate, and insurance. We have a light, heat, and power. We have a depreciation charge for the machinery. We have a canteen cost. We have some cost here from the pick list. We have a carrying amount. We have a floor space. We have a number of employees. So we have to choose which one is the most suitable basis of apportionment. Let's talk about the first one, rent, rate, and insurance. What we think that could be the most suitable basis. Do we have anything else here? No, that's three only. Yeah. So let's have a look. So which one you think? The first one, rent, rate, and insurance. What would be the most suitable basis for the apportionment? I can see everyone said floor space. Very well done, Sharon. Very well done, Michelle. Yes, Linji, that is right. Very well done. Jeno, yes. So that will be our floor space. Floor space. Because rent, rates, and insurance, how much will be it is depends on how big the building is. Very well done, Nazia. So let's move to the next one. Light, heat, and power. So heating and lighting, basically gas and electricity. So what we think the most suitable basis of apportionment. So what to make us more appropriate calculation if I want to split the heat and lighting or gas and electricity. So we'll go for the same one. Floor space. Very well done. Floor space. All right. Very well done. Very well done, D. So the next question we have, that is depreciation charge for of machinery. What do we think the most suitable basis of apportionment for the depreciation? What do we think? What is the most suitable basis? Yes, very good. Very well done, Annie. Very well done, Adele. So we have carrying amount. Yes, that's very good, because how much the value right now the machinery is carrying. So that will help me to get the depreciation charge of the machinery. This is a suitable basis of the apportionment. So I said depreciation of the machinery is the carrying value. Carrying value. And the last one we have canteen cost. What is the most suitable basis we have to apportion for the canteen cost? So we said number of employees. Very well done, because that is more relevant. That will give me the more accurate result for the apportionment. So very good. Number of employees. Employees. All right. Very well done, Luis. Very well done, Michelle. Yes, all of you have the right answer. So now we know how we can choose the most suitable basis of apportionment. If you have any question from here, you can ask me now before we move to the next activity. All right, so very well done, very good. Let's move to the next one. So more inside we'll go, we'll see the more bigger question. So they're just making us ready slowly, so that we only do the big question, we are ready for that. Activity 3. Now we are doing allocation and the apportionment at the same time. Let's read the requirement. What is the requirement? The requirement here is match the overhead with an appropriate basis for allocation or apportionment. We have some overhead cost here, and we have the basis of apportionment. Let's have a quick look. Just look 10 seconds on the question and think what could be the possible most suitable basis for the apportionment. All right, so let's move on. So yeah, okay, so let's move on to the rent and rates. The first one, uh, I hope everyone can hear me now. Yeah, let's start with the activity 3. So let's start with the first one, rent and rates. My advice will be, if possible, if everyone try to join at 6 o'clock, that will be really good, because every time when someone join, I have to go back and select the accept, so that sometimes makes some trouble. So if possible, try to join on time. Okay, so the rent and rates, the first one we will do, that will be the floor space. Very well done, Mark. So we move to that one. All right. The next one we have depreciation. What is the depreciation? Which one we should follow for the depreciation? Net book value. Very well done for the net book value. Very well done. Very well done, Alicia. Let's move to the next one. Staff canteen cost. Staff canteen cost. Number of employee. Very well done, Nicole. So staff canteen cost, number of employees. Very well done. Heat and light. Which one you go for? Now the heat and light, you can see we have volume of space occupied and the floor area. That means in the exam, if you don't see the floor area, if you see the volume of space occupied, it's basically the same story. So how much area I'm occupied and how much floor space I'm using is more or less the same thing. So don't be like very panic or confused if you see there is no floor area. So volume of space occupied is the same thing. Insurance equipment, what do you think that? Insurance of the equipment. So that will be the value of equipment insured. Very well done. And the last one, store cost, that I can allocate straight away to the store, because this said already this cost belongs to store. So I'll take it to store cost. All right, so of course now we done some more practice to find it out the most suitable basis for the apportionment. Now we know like how we're gonna split the cost, what are we going to use. Now we'll move to one of the calculation question. We'll see can we do it or not. Let's move on. Very well done, Catherine. Is allocate? Yes, very good. Let's move on to the next one. Activity 4. In activity 4, we have few overheads here. Overhead apportionment. Yeah, a company has incurred the following overhead cost for a period. We have a rent, factory rent. We have a factory heat, processing department supervisor. We can see this basically belongs to processing department. The question said very clearly processing. Packing department supervisor. So this belongs to packing. Depreciation of equipment, factory canteen expense, welfare cost of factory employees. Very good. So we have all this overhead cost. Now we have some suitable cost center in the company. We have a 3 department: processing department, packing department, and the canteen. All right. And we have some suitable basis here. They give us some more data. It's a cubic space. Now the cubic space we can say is a square meter. So let's say 1 square meter, 2 square meter. If I said, sometimes people said like my bedroom is too big, it is 100 square meter, or my office is really big, it is 60 square meter. So square meter is basically the space, how big it is. Cubic space, it says 50,000 square meter for the processing department. For the packing department is 25,000, and for canteen is 5,000. Net book value, maybe we need this one to calculate the depreciation. So we have for the processing department 300,000, for the packing department we have 300,000, for the canteen is 100,000. Number of employees. Number of employees we have 50, 40, and 10. So what is NBV equipment? It is net book value, Annie. So NBV means net book value. We can say carrying value as well. The net book value and the carrying value is the same thing. All right, so let's move on. We might write this information on the corner so that when you go to the question, we can see everything. So let's write it down everything. Factory rent, factory rent 20,000, factory hit 5040. Then we have processing department, supervisor 15,000, packing department 10,000, depreciation 7,000, canteen 18,000, welfare cost 5,000. That's it. We have all the information. This is quite interesting. This is what welfare. I'll tell you. Maybe in future, maybe it could be helpful for you. This word is so unique. We have two things. So when you buy lunch, when you buy water, if you buy any food for your staff, for your employee, we called it welfare cost. Now, welfare cost is a basically exempted for the tax purpose. So this is the allowable expenses. So you don't have to pay any tax. If you buy some lunch, if you buy the breakfast, if you buy any food for your employee, you don't have to pay tax on that because this is allowable expenses. Now, if for any reason, by mistake or for any reason, if you change the word from welfare to staff entertainment, then it is not allowable expense. So when you choose that category, when you do your bank analysis, for example, when you're going to work for a company as a bookkeeper, so when you do your bank analysis, when you categorize the cost, be careful. Some terms are really tricky. So this word, as soon as you use the word welfare, it is exempted. But as soon as you use staff entertainment, the entertainment is not allowable for the tax purpose. It is not allowable expense. So sometimes some of the word, as soon as you change the name of the category, that will be the allowable expense. All right. So let's move on. This happened to me once in 2016. I was working in a company, and the QuickBook basically automatically said staff entertainment. They have a welfare as well. Unless you choose it manually, the cost for the staff automatically goes to staff entertainment. So we put all this staff lunch and everything to the staff entertainment, and we had a visit from the HMRC, and they said you cannot claim expense this one for the tax purpose. The staff entertainment is not allowable expense, and explained basically like this is the lunch we buy for the staff. And after that, he said, then you should use the word that is called a staff welfare, not the staff entertainment. So some of the things sometimes you learn, and that is very important because maybe it is helpful for your workplace in future. All right, so let's have a look. We have the first thing. So we need to see which one we can allocate and which one we need to apportion. So allocate means I can directly allocate, and apportion means I cannot allocate to one department, so I have to apportion to different department. So the canteen, we have a clear cost for the canteen, isn't it? How much cost we have for the canteen? For the canteen, we have a cost 18,000. So this 18,000 we can directly allocate, isn't it? We don't have to apportion it because we have a department here for the canteen. And if I know this cost belongs to canteen, I can allocate directly. I said, this cost for you, I don't have to divide. So I said canteen cost, that is 18,000 pound. So 18,000, we can say 18,000 total, and it will go to the canteen. All right, we don't have to say anything for the basis because we are not using any apportionment. The next one we have processing department supervisor. Do I have any allocate cost that for the processing department supervisor? We need to look at the question processing department supervisor. So we can see we have a cost, isn't it? How much it is? 15,000. The question said we have a 15,000 overhead for the processing department. Very well done, D. Yes, very well done, Adil. Very well done, Jeno. Yes, we have 15,000 that we can allocate directly to the processing department. And that will go to processing department, 15,000. The next one we have packing department supervisor. Do we have any cost for the packing that we can directly allocate to the packing? So we can see we have a 10,000 packing department. So we said yes, 10,000 we can allocate to packing. All right, so up to here we are happy. We allocate all the costs that we can directly identify this cost belongs to that department. Now we move to the rent. We know rent is not going to be allocation because rent we have to split between all the department. Now the total rent cost, how much it is? Where is the rent? The total rent cost. Didn't I write it here? Yeah, 20,000 in the top. 20,000 is the rent. Now we have to give the rent to all this department, processing, packing, and canteen. Now we have to use the information from here. So which one is the suitable basis? Cubic space, net book value, or number of employee? Which one are we going to use to do this apportionment, 20,000? So we said the rent cost is total 20,000. And this 20,000 I have to split to three department. That is processing, packing, and the canteen. Now we can see the processing is 50. Is it processing or packing? The first one. So let's have a look. It's processing, yeah. So the processing is 50,000. The packing is 25, and the canteen is 5. And I'm sure you know how to do it. So we said we do 50 ratio 25 5. That's how we're going to split. So total 20,000 cost, we're going to split these three with the ratio 50, 25, and 5. How do you do that? So I'm sure you know that. So if I added all of this 50, 25, and 5, it will be 80, isn't it? So 80 over 50, that will go there, it's 20,000. Then 25 over 80, 20,000, that will go there. The last one will be 5 over 80, it will go there. That's how we can split all the cost. This is the ratio. I'm sure you know all of this very basic stuff. So let's have a look. How much will be the processing? So if it is 50%, so how much will be the processing? The rent, 12,500. Very well done, 12,500. Very good. I can see everyone have the same figure. That means correct. Then the packing is 25 over 80. That will be how much? 6250. Thank you, Vinal. Thank you, Catherine. So 6250. 6250. And the remainings for the canteen. How much will be the canteen? 1250. Very well done. 1250. Very, very good. Then we do the same way for the heating. The total heating cost is 5,040. And we have to split it the same ratio using the square meter 50, 25, and 5. Can anyone tell me what will be the amount for the processing, for the heating? All we need to do, we need to divide by 80 times by 50. So that will give you the cost for the processing. Then you do the same thing for the packing, same thing for the canteen. 3150. Very well done. 3150. 3150. Then you move to the packing. How much is the packing? So 1575. Very well done. 1575. And the rest will be for the canteen. How much is the canteen? 315. 315. So the total is 5040 that we split all the three departments. The next one we have the depreciation. The total cost for the depreciation is 7,000, and which is the most suitable basis to split the depreciation? Cubic space, net book value, or number of employee? Which one are we going to use? For the depreciation, we're going to use net book value. Very well done. So we're going to use net book value. So that will be our 331. This 2 will be 331. We can say 331. So this 7,000, we can say 3 plus 3 plus 1, that is 7. So we said 3 over 7 times 7,000. Then again 3 over 7 times 7,000 and 1 over 7. That's it. So how much it will be? The first one for the processing department, 331. Very well done, Mohammed. So 331. So 3,000. The next one will be same, 3,000 and 1,000. Very well done, Jano. Yes, very well done, Vanul. We have this same figure from everyone. The last one we have welfare. The welfare cost is 5,000. And 5,000, which one is the most suitable basis for the welfare? Which one is the most suitable basis for the welfare? Number of employees. Very well done, Annie. Yes, D and Najia, number of employee. So we have 50, 40, and 10. So we said, okay, so that will be 50, 40, and 10. So I said, we can do 5, 4, 1. So we can say 5 plus 4 is 9 and 10. So we can say 5,000. So 10 over 5 times 5,000. 4 over 10 times 5,000. And 1 divided 10, 5,000. It's very simple. So 2,500. Yeah. Then 2,000. All right. And finally 500. Okay. So that's it. And after that, we need to make the total. So we need to make the total of the total, all of this. We have to make the total of canteen. We have to make the total of packing. We have to make the total of processing. Can we make the total? And also, if someone have any question from here, please let me know. I can try to explain you more. So let's make the total for the processing. 15 plus 12,005, 3150, 3,000, 2,500. That will give you 36,150. 36,150. Then the next one, we have packing. 10,000 plus 6250 plus 1515 plus 5,000. So that will give you 22,825. And we have a canteen. We have 18, then 1250, 315, then 1500. So that will give you 21,065. Okay. And if I add the total, whatever it is, that will come here. Is it okay? 80040. Thank you, Kurt. So this is the question we have for the reapportionment. Is the heat is correct? I don't know if the heat is correct or not. I'm not sure how much we have. The heating is 5040, isn't it? And we use the same basis, that is 50, 25, and 5. Yes, I think so. So 50, 25, 5. It should be fine. Yeah, if we added this 3, that should give us the same figure, 5040. Yeah, it's correct. Which book we are using? I have 2016 book. Well, the question will be same anyway, Nazia. Even though if you're using a little bit different version, because we are using the 2009 21, the last year book. So that will be. But at the end, you'll see if you understand the question, it will be like same thing. Sometimes they just change the figure. Sometimes they change the amount, but at the end the story will be same. If you understand that, that will be absolutely fine. But my advice will be always try to buy the new book rather than buying the old book if you can. But if you do the practice, there is no problem, because the last syllabus we have updated, that is AQ16, so there is not much change. If you do the little bit old book, it still will be fine, but that is recommended you always use the book that is up to date. All right, so let's move on to our next question. The next question we have, that is a reapportionment. Let's have a look. How can we do the reapportionment? Now, the reapportionment have a two method. There is so many examples. Make sure you read all of this. I'll explain a little bit about that reapportionment. Now, the reapportionment have a two method. One is the direct method, one is indirect method. Try to understand the difference between the direct method and the indirect method. So let's say we talk about the direct method first. So direct method, reapportion, direct method. So in direct method, all we have to do, we reapportion the service department cost. Let's say we have a two department. We have a production and department. We have service department. Production department, service department. Let's we have a two production department, X and Y. We have a two service department, A and B. What we do, let's say the overhead is 5,000, 5,000, 2,000, and 2,000. So the question said, reapportion the service department cost into the production department. So A and B, these two are service department. We have to bring them into the production department. Now, how we bring, the question will tell us. So the question, let's say, said 50-50. They said equally. Share the cost equally to X and Y. So I said, okay. So I said reapportion of A. That means this 2,000, I'll put 1,000 here and 1,000 here, because the question said share equally. So I said A is gone. I'll minus from here 2,000, and this 2,000 will come 1,000 here and 1,000 here. So my A will be 0. Then I will say reapportion of B. So what will happen? Again, this 2,000 will come 1,000 here and 1,000 here, and that will be also 0 because I'll minus 2,000 here. So my A and B will be now no cost, and this service department cost will move to the production X and Y. Now, the new cost for the X will be 7. New cost for the Y will be 7. So this is called the direct method, where the service department costs directly allocate to the production. So where the service department costs directly allocate to the production department, this is called direct method. Now, what is the difference between the direct and the indirect? Let's have a look at the indirect method now. So we'll make indirect method for the same question. So X, Y, A, and B. So let's say 5,000, 5,000, 2,000, and 2,000. Now this time we said reapportion A. So let's say my A is now 3,000, not 2, because we want to understand a little bit simply. Reapportion A between X, Y, and B. So this time I am reapportioning the service department cost into the production also in the service. So the last one was service to production. Try to understand. The last one was service to production directly. Now the indirect one is service, production, and service. So I said this 3,000 will be equally 1,000, 1,000, and 1,000. So 3,000 is gone. And after that, also reapportion of B. Now the new B is 3,000, not 2. And this 3,000 I'm going to split between X and Y. I said 1,500 and 1,500. So 3,000 minus and is 0. So this is a very basic thing, but you need to understand the logic. The direct method, service department costs straightway move to the production. But indirect method, service department cost reapportion between the production and the service. And after that, the cost we already have with another service department, that will be increased. For example, you can see here, B is a service department cost. The cost was 2,000 before. Now, because some portion come from the A, now it become 3. So it will be increased. And after that, we split this cost to the production. So very, very clear. Two things. Number one, direct method, where service department straightway come to production, end of the story. On the other hand, the next one is indirect method, service department split production and service both, and after that, the next service department will be increased, whatever is left over, then we move to the production. This is just basically an explanation. We'll do the question now. After that, we'll understand very well. If not, I'll explain more. So let's move on. Try to understand this question. We said overhead reapportionment, direct method. In the exam, 99% time you will see indirect method, 99% time. But sometimes I have seen the direct method as well in the exam, but most of the case, most likely it will be indirect. So let's have a look. So using the following data, reapportion the overhead of the store and the maintenance. We have two departments, production and the service. What is our plan? We have three service departments, store, maintenance, and general overhead. These three ultimately, this service department ultimately will move to X and Y later on. This is the plan. Because the service department have no income. This department have no income. So their cost has to be bear by the production department. This is our plan. All the service costs will move to the production. So they said, this is our overhead, 70, 30, 20, 15, and 6. Value of the machinery, we have 8 and 7. Okay. Now the question will tell us how we're going to reapportion that. So let's say the first one, they said 62.5% of the store department cost will be moved to X. So basically from the store, 62% will go to X, and rest remaining, I don't know what it is, it's going to be 38%, isn't it? 37.5. So 62.5, 37.5 will move to Y. The next one said maintenance cost. This one, maintenance cost, are to be apportioned between the production department on the value of the machinery. So we have 8 and 7, so that will be 15,000. So 15 over 8 and 15 7. That will go to, this one will be split between the x and y based on that ratio. And the last one, they said it will be equally. That's really easy. If they said equally, that will be very easy. So 6,000 will split 3 3, isn't it? That's all. So let's move on and try to complete this question. So let's write it down, this figure, because I'm not going to remember it. So we have x 70,000, y 20,000, then store 20,000, maintenance 15,000, general overhead 6,000. This apportionment question always in the exam, it will give you 15 to 20 marks. So make sure you understand this question very well. All right, so let's move on. Let's start with that one. So I'm going to write the overhead first from the question. So x 70,000, I'm just copying the question. That question said to me 70, y 30,000. Then we have 20,000 for the store. Thank you, Mark. Y is 30,000. Thank you. So maintenance 15 and 6. All right, so you're right here. This is just the question you copied. Now we're going to reapportion the store. If you remember the store, this is 62% of the store. So 20,000, 20,000. So I said, let's do that. So let me write off this. So you can write it down here. All right, so we said store. First start with the store. Store 62%. So 62% for X and 37.5% for Y, isn't it? Can anyone tell me the figure, how much it is? So 12,500 for X, very well done. So 12,500 for X and 7,500 for Y. Very well done. And the store will be minus 20,000 because I just took the store and reapportioned it to the production. So my store is finished. 20,000 is split to X and Y. All right, so the next one, reapportion of maintenance. If you remember, that was the value of the machinery. So that was 8 and 7, isn't it? So 8,000 and 7,000, that was 15,000. So I said 8,000 over 15 and 7 over 15, isn't it? And the cost is for maintenance 15,000. So how much will be for our X for the maintenance? Can anyone tell me how much will be the maintenance reapportionment for the X? 8,000. Very well done, Osim. So 8,000 and 7,000 for the Y. Very good. And what we'll do, we're gonna minus the maintenance. We said the maintenance is no more. So we said maintenance is gone. 15,000. Maintenance is gone. The last one we have reapportion of the general admin. That was 3,000, isn't it? So that should be equal. It said 3,000, 3,000. So it was 6,000. So 6,000 will be minus because they said it will be equally. So that will be 3 and 3. All right. So now we can see all the service department cost is vanished now. So we have a 0, 0, and 0. And all of this cost moved to the production. Can we have the total for the X and Y? We have 70 plus 12,500 plus 8 plus 3, 11,000. So that will be 93,500. Very good. And for the Y, 30 plus 7,500 plus 7,000 plus 8,000, 47,500. Very well done. Okay, so that's how we can do our direct method. Very well done, Alicia. This is our direct method. Anyone have any question from here before we move to the indirect method or step down method? We are all good. All right, then move to our next one. That will be the step down method. So let's talk about the step down method. So the step down method. Let's read this question. They said using the following data, reapportion the overhead of a store and the canteen. So you have a two department this time, service, store and the canteen. And ultimately this one will come to either X or Y. So this time all you need to do when you reapportion, we give to the service department as well, and after that we will move to the production department. Allocated and apportion overhead 70, 30, 20, 15. Number of employee 45, 50, and 5. Read the first one. They said 50% of the store department time, 50% from here, store department time, spent on production X. So basically from here, from 20,000, 50% will come to X, 50%. Then 30% will go to store department, cost to the Y. So from here, 30% will be here. 50 and 30, 80%. And 20% will go to canteen. So from here, 20% go to canteen. Yeah. The next one is says the canteen costs are to be apportioned between the production department on the basis of number of employees. So after that, this 20% will be added here. So whatever come from the store, 20% will be added here. And the new figure will be split between the X and Y based on the number of employee on X and Y. That's all we're going to do. So let's do that. So we move to the question and let's see, you can see it hopefully. Yeah, we can see it. So let's write it down. The employee X 70, Y 30,000, store 20,000, and canteen 15. Number of employee, so X 45, Y 50, and store 5. Okay, and this one we hopefully remember 50%, 30%, and 20%. We are following the step down now. Okay, so the first one we're going to do allocated the overhead. So from the quotient 70,000, then 30,000, 20,000, and 15. Apportion of a store. Now first we're going to apportion the store. The store is 20,000 and we know that is 50% to X, 30% to Y, and the 20% to canteen. Can we have the amount for X? How much is the 50% of 20,000? That will be 10,000, isn't it? So this is 70,000. So 10. And for the Y, how much is for the Y? 6,000. And how much is for the canteen? 4,000. Thank you, Annie. So 4,000. And all you need to do, you need to minus the 20,000 from the store because the store is no more. We reapportion the store to the X, Y, and canteen. So we don't have any store anymore. Then we reapportion the canteen now. You see the new canteen will become now 19. Even though the canteen was before 15 and 4 will be added from the store, so the new canteen is now 19. This is the step down or indirect method. This is the difference between the direct and the step down or direct or indirect method. Now this 19,000 we're going to split based on the employee X and Y. So 19,000, 45 and 50 employees. So 45 plus 50 is 95, isn't it? So can we have the amount for X? So 19,000. So we said, is it 95? 95 over 45, 50 over 95. So that will be our 19,000, 19,000. So how much we have for our X? For X, we have 9,000. All right. For Y, we have 10,000. All right, so that's the difference basically. So on the step down method, some of the service department costs also allocate or reapportion to the service, and after that, the total we reapportion to the production department. All right, can I have the total now? So 70 plus 10 is 80 plus 9 is 89,000. Then we have 30 plus 6 plus 10 is 46. That's it. And these are 0, these are 0. Very well done, Daniel. Yes, so that's how we can do our step down method. All right, so any question from here before I move to our next topic? All good? All right, so let's move on to our next topic. Let's have a look what we have. Very easy. Okay, so let's move on to the next chapter. The next chapter we have absorption costing. Now let's talk about the absorption costing. Now absorption costing, we have a three method, the way to calculate the unit cost of a product. So when we basically calculate the product unit cost, we have three method that we followed. The first one we followed, that is absorption costing. Number one, absorption costing. The first one we have absorption costing. Let me write this way, absorption costing. Number two, we have marginal costing. And the third one, we have ABC. ABC. That is called activity-based costing. ABC means activity-based costing. We'll see everything one by one. So now we're going to see the absorption costing. Let's have a look what we have in the absorption costing. So the first thing we can see the chapter overview. On the chapter overview, it will tell us what we're going to see inside of the chapters. The first thing we're going to see here, OAR, that is overhead absorption rate. So the OAR, overhead absorption rate. So overhead absorption rate will be very, very important. Of course, like this question will be in the exam. So you need to be very careful when you do your overhead absorption rate. Now the overhead absorption rate is, there is a formula here, OAR, overhead absorption rate. And the formula here is budgeted production overhead. You have to memorize this formula. Budgeted production overhead, budgeted production overhead divide budgeted production activity level. Now, overhead absorption rate, OAR. Budgeted production is not actual. This is the first thing I want all of you to remember. If the question asks you to calculate OAR, overhead absorption rate, remember the top will be the budget, not the actual, the budget. On the bottom, it is also budget. It's not actual. Remember, the overhead absorption rate that we calculate is based on the budget, is based on the standard, is based on the estimate, is based on the forecast. It's not something actual. The activity level means it could be anything. It could be labor hour, it could be machine hour, it could be unit. So it could be labor hour, it could be machine hour, it could be unit. So normally it will be either the machine hour or it will be either the labor hour. And the top we have the overhead. This is all the indirect cost. All the indirect cost. Overhead is the all indirect cost. So budgeted indirect cost on the bottom, budgeted activity level. Now the activity level could be the machine hour, or the budgeted activity level could be the machine hour. So you have to see the question, you have to identify that, but it could be anything. The other side we have the under or over absorbed. This one, I will do a question that time we will see, we'll do it together, but we already discussed that before as well. Under and over absorbed means, for example, let's say I would say my overhead for the month of January, my overhead for the month of January will be 10,000. That was my plan. That was my plan. So I absorbed, I absorbed overhead for the month of January 10,000. But when actually the January is passed, when I have the actual figure, I can see the actual is not 10,000, actual is 12,000. So that's my actual. So that's my budget and that's my actual. So my budget was 10,000 and actual is 12. So remember, actual I cannot change. Actual something, the real time figure, I cannot change the actual. I can only make the estimate of budget based on the previous data, but actual means something, the absolute figure, that is the real figure. Now on the other hand, the budget, I have absorbed 10,000. So this is the one I have absorbed. Now very careful, when you have a data, budgeted overhead and the actual overhead, you have to identify, did you absorbed more or less? You will ask yourself. Never look at the actual. Never look at the actual. I'm telling all of you too again. Never look at the actual figure, because actual is actual. So you need to ask yourself, did I absorb more or less? Now I absorbed 10 and actual is 12. So I absorbed less. So I absorbed less. If I absorb less, this is under absorbed. Under absorbed. If I absorb less, this is under absorbed. The reason I'm focusing this point is sometimes I have seen the student, they think, oh, the actual is more, this is over absorbed. No, if the actual is more, it is actually under absorbed, because you will ask yourself what you did. If you absorb less, this is under absorbed. If you absorb more, this is over absorbed. So here the actual is 12,000, that is more than you absorb. This is not over. So don't think like actual is more, so it is over absorbed. No, actual is more, this is under absorbed, because you absorb less. Actual is not the wrong figure. Actual is the correct figure. We are not doing the variance analysis here. So don't try to find that adverse or favorable. No, we try to find, is it over absorbed or under absorbed? The reason is, this is a plan. 10,000 is a budgeted. So my budget is correct or not, that I have to identify, because that will have impact on the profit statement. All right, so we'll see it when you do the actual question anyway. So at least we have some idea what it is. So let's move on. And the final one, we have the ABC, activity based costing. The activity based costing is mainly we identify the basis of the apportionment. We divide every single cost the way we did for the rent and rates, for the heat and lighting, for the counting, for the welfare, and we split the cost according to the basis of apportionment. We'll see, that is example we'll see from there. All right, so let's move on. Let's do one of the question. We'll understand it maybe from here. Remember how much I explained to you, that will not be very helpful until we do the practice. So when you do the actual question, when you do the activity, that will start making more sense. So more you practice, it will start making sense to you automatically. There is no alternative to get a good score in the exam until you made enough practice for yourself. So more you practice, you will be more confident in the exam. Let's try that. Activity 1, overhead absorption base. So Marks Limited has two production departments. We have a two production department, mixing and a string. Now mixing and a string, in which it make a variety of product. So we have a two department, M and S. Now very careful. As I said, when you calculate the OAR, overhead absorption rate, the top we already know it will be budgeted overhead, no doubt, everyone knows it. But on the bottom is budgeted activity. The budgeted activity could be machine hour, could be labor hour. So we need to see which one we should choose. Now in the exam, they will give you both. They will give you the machine hour and they will give you the um, labor hour. So we have to choose which one I should decide. Should we decide to take the labor hour? Should we decide to take the machine hour? Now, which one are we going to take? It will depends. Is that organization depends on machine, or is that organization depends on labor? Very careful. If the organization depend on labor, that means you're going to choose the labor hour when you do the OAR, overhead absorption rate. But if the organization depends on machine, we have to use the machine. For example, let's say the customer service. Now the customer service, everyone need to pick the phone, they have to give the information. So this customer service mainly depend on the labor hour. But let's talk about, we have a photocopy machine. Now there is a 10 machine, like a printing machine. We have a printing business. Let's say the 10, 20, 50 machine run by only two people. So this business depends on the machine, not on the people, because only two people run 20 machine. So if the business depends on the machine hour, we have to we have to pick the machine hour. If the business depends on the labor hour, we have to pick the labor hour. Let's try this example. We can see here it says direct labor hour. So we have a two department, mixing and string. So in direct labor hour, we can see we need 20,000. We need 20,000 labor hour for mix and 5,000 for the string. The machine hour, we need 2,000 machine hour for mixing, and for string 60,000. Now, if I ask you, mixing department depend on what? Labor or machine? What will be your answer? We are talking about the mixing. Is mixing department depend on labor or machine? I'm sure all of you can tell me. I can see they need 20,000 labor hour and only 2,000 machine. So I can easily say mixing department depend on labor hour. And you are right. Yes, the mixing department depend on the labor hour. On the other hand, we have a string department. Now, string department labor hour is 5,000 and direct machine hour is 60,000. So we understand the string department depend on what? On the machine. So I can say the first one is labor, the next one is machine. Anyone have any confusion for that? It's very clear, isn't it? Because mixing department, we use more labor, so it depends on labor. String department, we use more machine, so it's depend on machine. Now the question is asking, mixing department, OAR, overhead absorption rate, should be based on what? Pick from the two, budgeted labor hour or budgeted machine hour. So mixing department is depends on what? labor. So we said labor hour. And the string department OAR should be based on what? Machine or labor? Machine hour. Very well done. Very well done, Abdi. Very well done, Adil. Very well done, Janos. Yes, so we have the right answer. So that's how we need to identify that. Any question from here is a very basic understanding because we slowly move in. So, of course, you have to make sure you understand that so that we can understand the next one as well. If you have any confusion, please ask me so that I'll try to explain to you more. All right, this is the formula. We already know that the overhead absorption rate, budgeted production overhead over the budgeted activity. Budgeted activity level could be machine hour, could be labor hour. I don't know. Depends on the organization. Okay, so if you understand that, can we try that? Activity 2, overhead absorption rate. Can we calculate that? It said budgeted information for department A is as follows. Okay, budgeted overhead says 40,000 for A and machine hour 2,000. Calculate the overhead absorption rate, that is OAR, overhead absorption rate OAR, per machine hour for department A. So how much will be the OAR, overhead absorption rate, per machine hour? So overhead is 40,000 and 40,000 is the overhead OAR. So budgeted overhead and budgeted activity. So overhead is 40,000, the question said, and the machine hour is 2,000. So the OAR will be 20 per machine hour, isn't it? So 20 per machine hour. Very well done, Nicole. Very well done, Abdi. Very well done, Luis. So we have this right figure. So that means we understand that. So now we can move on to our next question. And of course, we can see the question will be a little bit bigger, slowly. Of course, like if we understand it, that will be no problem. But we have to revise as well. Not only we do it me, you understand everything, you have to understand yourself as well. So make sure you need to do some revise as well. All right, so we're very close to the break. Let's take a break. Let's take a half an hour break. We'll come back 8 o'clock and we'll start again from here and write your name for the attendance. That will help you to get your recorded lesson. I'll see you 8 o'clock. Let's start with the next question we have. Let's try this activity 3. Overhead absorption rate, OAR2. Let's try if you can do that. The question is saying here, calculate the overhead absorption rate for mixing department and for the string department. So let's try that. Mars Limited has two production departments, mixing and string, in which it makes a variety of products. Budgeted overhead are 10,000 and 15,000. The following budgeted information has also been collected. So let's have a look. Mixing and the string. Direct labor hour 20,000 for M for S5. Direct machine hour 2 for M and 60 for S. Number of unit, we have 10,000 unit for mixing and for the string is 10,000. So can we calculate the overhead absorption, mixing department overhead absorption rate and string department overhead absorption rate? So can we calculate that? So you can see here we have 10,000. So the cost is 10,000 OAR budgeted overhead and budgeted activity. So budgeted overhead, the first one for the mixing. So for the mixing, the budgeted we have 10. So it's a 10,000, and the hour we have labor hour, because mixing department depends on the labor hour. So it's a 20,000 labor hour. So that will give us how much? 20 pence. So we said 20 pence, 50 pence, 50 pence per labor hour. So we said 50 pence per labor hour. On the other hand, for the string department, we have the overhead, we have 15,000 from the quotient, and we have 60,000 machine hour, and that gives us 25 pence per machine hour. So 25 pence per machine hour. That's very simple question. It's not difficult. So let's move on to the next one. The next one we have activity 4. Have a look this activity 4. It says overhead absorption rate in the service sector. Bus route X11 has total budgeted overhead for the year ended 130,000. The expected mile travel for the year 325,000. Calculate an appropriate overhead absorption rate. Of course, per mile. We understand that will be per mile. So how much it will be? 130,000 the total overhead. And how many miles we traveled? 325,000 miles. And that give us 40 pence. 40 pence per mile. All right, still is very simple calculation. You don't find it very tricky. So let's move on. Now we'll do some question that will be under or over absorbed. That could be tricky. So make sure you understand the under or over absorbed question. Let's try this activity 5. So in this activity it says overhead absorption rate OAR3. Pumpkin Limited provides you with the following budgeted information for its painting division. Total total overhead 400,000. Total budgeted direct labor hour 3,200. Total machine hour 10,000. So we have few requirements. The first one we have calculate the budgeted fixed overhead absorption rate using labor hour. Calculate the budgeted overhead absorption rate using the machine hour. So the first one they said, so let's do that. A, asking OAR by using the labor hour. The labor hour, that's quite simple. Total overhead is 400,000. The quotient already mentioned that. And the labor hour, how many labor hour? 3,200. So 400,000. Then we have 3,200. That gives me how much? 125. 125 per labor hour. Okay. The next one, number B, they're asking to find the overhead absorption rate using the machine hour. So do the same thing, OAR, but this time we're going to use the machine hour. So we said 400,000, and we will divide this time with 10,000. And that will give us how much? 40 per machine hour. Okay, that's quite simple still. Then the next one, number C, is asking the painting manager informs you that the painting division is highly automated and operates with expensive machinery, which is run whenever possible on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Which of the two overhead absorption rate calculated A and B above would be the most appropriate for absorption? So they are telling us this company is heavily based on the machinery. So which one will be the most suitable basis to calculate the overhead absorption rate? Machine hour or the labor hour? So we understand it should be labor hour because the question said this company is heavily machine wise. So we said number B. So we'll go for the B. We said machine hour, of course. That is 40 pence per machine hour, 40 pound per machine hour. So this is not difficult. Let's move on to the next requirement. So this you already calculated. Number one. So this is 125 per labor hour. We have calculated that already. This is 40 per machine hour. So the next one is as most appropriate will be 40 per machine hour. This is number C. We have already done. And number D. Let's try number D. Number D is asking at the end of the accounting period, the painting manager provides you with the following actual data. So they are giving me actual data for the painting division. So total overhead, that's the actual total actual overhead 521,262, actual direct labor hour 4,100, actual machine hour 12,562. Now we have to calculate, did we absorbed more or less? So we have to identify, is it under absorbed or is it over absorbed? So let's have a look. So total machine hour is 12,562, and per machine hour we have absorbed how much? 40. That's the most suitable, isn't it? So multiply by 40, that will give us the total overhead that we have absorbed, because we said per hour per machine hour is 40. So if the actual number of machine hour is 12,562, how much will be the total machine hour we have absorbed? So can we calculate that? So we said we have 40 times 1200 562. That gives me 502 502 480. All right, now we have to compare. So we have this budgeted, based on the budgeted. Remember that we multiply with the actual. We multiply with the actual number of hour, but we times by overhead absorption rate that we have calculated in number C. This is the most suitable. So we absorbed per hour 40. So for 12,562, so we absorb 50,240 480. So 50 24 80, but actual is 521. So we have 502 and actual is more. So now the question is, remember, as I said before, we ask ourselves, that's the actual and this is the one I absorbed. So we always ask ourselves, did I absorb more or less? If I absorb less, it will be under absorbed. If I absorb more, that will be over absorbed. So actual is 521, that is more. So I absorb less. If I absorb less, that will be under absorbed. And that will be the difference between what I absorbed and how much is actual. So how much is the difference here? So you already know this is under absorb, and the difference between the actual and the amount we have absorbed, that will give us how much under we absorb. So that is how much? 18,782. Very well done, Zulia. Very well done, Annie. 18,782. Very well done, Abdi. So that's how we can do under or over absorbed. Very, very careful. So we multiply with the actual number of hour, could be machine or could be labor, but we times with the budgeted OAR and we compare with the actual. If I absorb less, under; if I absorb more, over. All right, so let's do one more example. Let's do one more question. Under and over absorb. Let's say how much clear we are. Over or under absorption. The assembly department recovers its fixed overhead on the basis of budgeted machine hour. The finishing department, however, recovers its fixed overhead on the basis of labor hour. So assembly is machine hour, finishing is labor hour. The following information relates to those department for the January 2006. So let's have a look. What is the information we have? So we have a two department, assembly and finishing. Budgeted fixed overhead absorption rate 10 and 7.5. They already give it to us. So OAR is already calculated. OAR is already calculated. We don't have to do anything. Actual machine hour worked. This hour we need. This hour we need to identify, did we absorbed more or less. Actual direct labor hour worked 1200 and 1250, and the actual fixed overhead, this is the one we're going to compare, 8110 and 9000. All right, let's read the requirement now. The requirement is said calculate the fixed overhead absorption in January in assembly department, calculate the fixed overhead absorbed in January for finishing. So both assembly and the finishing. Okay, let's say, is there anything else we have here? And they're asking calculate the over or under absorb and stating clearly whether overhead have been under or over absorbed for assembly and the finishing both. So we have A, B, C. So we have to answer all of this. So let's try with the first one. How much overhead we have absorbed for the assembly and for the finishing? So let's try that first. Let's write it down, number A and B. So let's do in the corner A. Fixed overhead in January for assembly department. So can anyone tell me how much will be the overhead we have absorbed for the department of our assembly? So we can see how many hours we have absorbed. 77775, isn't it? So 775, and per hour is 10, isn't it? So if you multiply that 10, that gives me 77 and 50. So this is the one I absorbed. Okay. Number B, how much you absorbed for the finishing department? So on the finishing department, it depends on the labor hour. The question said is a labor, so 1250, and multiply 750 per hour times 7.5. And if I multiply that, that will give me 9375. Very well done. 9375. So this is also done. And number C, now we have to do over or under. The first one we do for our assembly department. So assembly. So we have absorbed how much? 7750 we absorbed, and the actual is 8110. 8110. So this is we absorbed, and the actual is 8110. So it will be under or over? Under, because we always ask ourselves, did we absorb more or less? So we can see we absorb less than the actual, so we absorb less, 7750, so this is under absorbed. Very good. Number two, for the finishing department, we absorbed 9375, 9375, and the actual is 9000. So again, we will ask ourselves, did I absorb more or did I absorb less? So I can see the actual is 9000, but I have absorbed 9300. So I absorbed more. So I said is over absorbed. That's it. So yes, that's correct, Adele. 375 over. Very well done. So this question will be definitely in the exam. So make sure you understand it. It's a bit tricky, but it's not difficult. So we can quickly write it down. Down 7750. That one we have done. Then 9375. This one is the first one, assembly is under. And the next one is over. All right, that's it. So let's move on to our next question. This one we have, the next point we have advantage of disadvantage. I'll leave this one for you to read it as a homework. Let's move on to our next question, activity 7, Mars Limited. Let's try to do this question together. So Mars Limited has the following overhead absorption rate: mixing department and the string department. Mixing department 50 pence per labor hour, string department 25 pence per machine hour. Mars Limited has a product, the Venus, for which you obtain the following information: direct material £5 per unit, direct labor mixing 2 hour, string zero point 0.5 hour, direct machine hour for the mixing zero point 0.2 hour, string 6 hours. Labor is paid £6 80 pence per hour. All right, so what is the total cost of this product? Let's calculate the total cost of this product. It's not difficult. So the question already tell us the direct material, that is £5. Labor, so you have to calculate the labor. We need to see how many hours we need. So you can see for the mixing, we need 2 hours. For the string, we need 0.5 hours. So we said for the mixing, we need 2 hours, and per hour is 8.60. And for the string, we need 0.5 hour, and the per hour is again 8.60. So 2 times 8.6, that will give us how much? So 2 times 8.6, 17.2. So 17.20. The next one is 0.5 times 8.60. So that will give you 4.3. Very well done, Luis. So 4.3. So this is our labor. So total labor cost, we're going to add this to. So if I added this to, that will give me that. So total direct cost. So we have this two plus this. So that will give me the total direct cost. Total direct cost is basically the prime cost. Direct labor and direct material is these two together. We called it prime cost. This is the total direct cost. 26, 5. Very well done. All right, then move to the next one, overhead. The mixing department. The overhead, they said mixing department, string department, and the machine hour. So we need for the mixing department 2 and string department 6. So we said, okay, so 2 and 6. And the per hour, the question said, let's move on. The question said 50 pence for the labor and 25 pence for machine. So let's have a look. So how much will be our, that will be 50 pence, isn't it? And for that it will be our 25 pence. So remember, we are not taking this machine hour because we are taking the labor hour for the mixing. Why? The question tell us the overhead absorption rate mixing department, so 50 pence per labor hour. So mixing department link with the labor and string department link with the machine. So very careful in the exam. So if you do it quick, it might be made a mistake. You might take like you follow the sequence, but the question will tell you how we allocate the overheads. So the overhead absorption rate for the mixing department based on the labor hour. So how many labor hour we need? We need labor hour 2 hours, isn't it? But on the other hand, the string department basically need the machine hour. So we need the machine hour, that is 6 hours. So that's why we are not taking this 0.2, we are taking the 2 because the question tell us we use the overhead absorption rate based on the machine hour for the mixing. So that will be our 2 times 0.50, that will be 1, and 6 times 0.25, that will give us 1.50. So if I added this 2, the overhead will be 2.50, and if I added the overhead with the total direct cost, that is 26.50, that will be how much total? 26.50 plus 2.50, that will give us 29. So only the trick here is the overhead absorption rate, OAR. Remember that the question said very clearly the overhead will be absorbed for the mixing department based on labor hour and for the string department based on machine hour. So follow that. All right, so any question from here before we move to the next topic? Well done, very good. So let's move on. The next thing we're going to see, there is another costing method. So we have ABC. I have one more example here. So I will leave this one for your homework, activity 8. So this one I'll leave is your homework. You try yourself. If you stuck, if you have any question, let me know. At least one question you should try yourself. Then if you need any help, we'll do it together. It's a very easy question. All you need to do, need to divide by all the heat and lighting, and you need to split the cost. But if you need any help, we'll do it together later on. So I'll leave task 8, the activity 8 for your homework. Write it down. Make sure you try yourself. All right, so let's move to the next chapter. The next chapter we have, that will be chapter number 7. In chapter number 7, we're going to see job, batch, and service costing. Job, batch, and service costing. Now, job, batch, and service costing is not a very popular costing method and very less tested in the exam. Hardly 5 marks can come in the exam from this chapter, but still we have to cover this chapter. So let's move on. Let's have a look what we have in this chapter. On this chapter, we can see the chapter overview. They said we have a job and the batch costing. Let's understand the definition, the difference between the job costing and the batch costing. So the job costing and the batch costing both are costing method. If I want to make it very simple for all of you, I can say job costing is only for one person. Let's say, for example, you are with the construction business and one of your clients said, can you make a house like this? Or can you make my garden like this? Can you make my balcony like this? So if you follow this instruction, so you are basically working for one client and that will be your job. On the other hand, the batch costing is the unidentical product. For example, if I try to make this pen, I make maybe 100 or 1000 or 10,000 for one customer. So I make the same product in a batch. So when I make the same product, if the quantity is really more, the cost will be low. For example, if I make one pen, the cost will be £10. If I make 10,000 pen, the cost will not be £10. It will be less than £10. So when you make a batch, a lot of unit, a lot of product together in a batch, this is called batch costing. So normally batch costing per unit will be less, the cost per unit. On the other hand, the job costing only for specific order. Sometimes we call it customized order, isn't it? So for example, you can customize your order. You said, I want this color. Let's say if you want to order a computer, you said, I want Core i7, I need the processor 2.5, I need the hard drive 2 terabyte, I need the RAM 16 GB, I need the Windows operating system 10. So all of this you can decide, you can build yourself. So that will be the job. And on the other hand, let's see if you make a pen 1000 pen or 10,000 pen, that will be the batch total. So let's read this definition. What are they saying here? Job, single area or contract. Single area or contract. On the other hand, the batch, lots of identical items that make up one cost unit. A lot of identical item. For example, if we have a pen, we have a box of pen. So in one box we can have a 10 pen. So on the cost card, I think we already know that direct material, direct labor is called prime cost, and overhead is gives you total cost. So this one is not very new to us, you already know that. On the other hand, we have a service industry, product cost and the cost unit. The product not tangible. Now this word is not very common for the management accounting. The tangible and the non-tangible. So tangible asset and the non-tangible asset. So tangible asset means the asset I can see, non-tangible asset, the asset you cannot see. For example, the customer service, you cannot see the customer service. So someone is happy, give you a very wonderful customer service, but you don't see it, so obviously you cannot decide like how good the customer service in monetary value. So you can say, I'm very happy with the customer service, but if I ask you, try to convert this value into money. Let's say, how much is the value you want to give for this customer service? £10, £20, £50? You say, I don't know, because it's something I cannot convert into financial or monetary value. I cannot do it. So non-tangible asset is the asset that we cannot see, we cannot touch. For example, goodwill. For example, patent. For example, the reputation. For example, database. For example, the software. We cannot touch it. So this type of asset is called non-tangible asset, like customer service. Then we have a service department costing, cost of the internal service business. So we'll see all of this. So let's have a look. Some question from here for the job costing. Let's do one example. Activity 1, job 4321. So basically, the reason they give us this number, job 4321, so that we understand this is one specific order from one customer. It's not something batch, it's not something identical. So this order from one specific customer, that's why we are calling this is a job costing. So let's read that. It says the following information is available for job 4321, which is being produced at the request of a customer. So we have a three department, department A, department B, and department C. Material we have 4,000, department B 1,000, department C 1,500. So I'm going to write here this one A, B, and C, and material. So 4,000, 1,000, 1,500. That's my material. Direct labor. So the direct labor I have 6, 8, 5. Direct labor hours 300 hours, 200 hours, 400 hours. All right, we have some more information here. In accordance with company policy, the following are chargeable to jobs. Fixed production overheads £5 per labor hour. So I need to add, how much is the total labor hour? 300, 200 plus 400. So 300 plus 200 plus 400 is 900. And they said the production overhead is £5 per labor hour. So total labor hour is 900. I'm going to multiply by 5. That will give me the production overhead. So this is number one. Number two, admin overhead. They said 80% of the production cost. So I have to calculate the total production cost, and after that I will take 80%, and that will be the admin overhead. And finally, I have to add the profit, 20% markup on cost. So I'll calculate the total cost. On the total cost, I'm going to add 20% as a markup. That's it. So let's move on, complete this question. So we can see this is a template. That's very nice because in the exam you have the template, so you don't have to write anything. You don't have to make your template by yourself in level 3. So if you do level 4, you have to write a lot of things, but in level 3 you're very lucky. You just need to write it down, choose from the drop down, so it will not take long time if you know what you are doing. So let's have a look. The direct material, department A, B, and C. So let's start with that. So direct material, the department A. So how much is the department A? We have 4,000, 4,000, and B 1,000, and C 1,500. All right. So if I added this three, that will give me the total cost for the material. So we can write it down here. So we said the total will be how much? 6,500. Then we'll do the direct labor. So the labor, how much is the labor cost we have? So the direct labor, they said for department A, 300 hours and per hour is 6. Department B, 200 hours per hour is 8. Department C, 400 hours per hour is 5. So the first one, 300 times 6, that gives me 1,800. So 1,800. Department B, that gives me 8 times 2, 1,600. And department C, 400 times 5. So that gives me 2,000. And if I added all of this, that gives me 16, 18, 2,000, 5,400. All right. Now we have to make the production overhead. If you remember the production overhead, the question said £5 per hour on the total labor hour. So we already know the total labor hour is 900. That is 3 plus 2 plus 4, 900 hours. So I said 900 hours times £5 per hour. The question said production overhead. So can you get the figure how much it is? 900 times 5. That will give me 4,500. Very well done. 4,500. The next one is total production cost, that I'm going to add all of this, and that. That will give me the total production cost. Can we add these three and we can find it out how much is the total production cost? 16,400. Thank you, James. Very well done. 16,400. 16,400. This is our total production cost. Now, the next one we're going to do admin. The admin said 80% of the production. So 80% of the production, we have to do 80% of that. 16,400. Can we do 80% of that? 16,400 times 80%. That gives me the admin. So 13,120. Very well done, Nicholas. Very well done, Jenna. Very well done, Luis. Yes. Now after that we get the total cost. So now I can have the total cost, that is 16,400 plus 13,120. If I added this two, that will give me the total cost. So how much is the total cost? 29,520. Very well done, Annie. So 29,520. And finally, you have to add the profit, isn't it? The question said profit is 20%. So my cost is 29,520. I'm going to add 20% profit. So how much will be the profit? 29,520. And top of that, I'm going to add 20% of the profit, 5,904. Very well done, Annie. So 5,904. And if I added this two, that will be the selling price. So if I added these two, that will give us the selling price. So can I add these two and find how much I should sell to the customer? So how much I want to sell to the customer. So I added all this cost, I added my profit. After that, I find my selling price. So that will be 35,424. Very well done. That's it. Very well done, Alicia. So that's how we can do the job costing. All right, so before we move to the next question, any question from here? Very good up to here. So let's move on then. Very well done. So let's move to our next question, that is activity 2, and it said S Limited. Let's try to do this question. So S Limited has been asked to undertake a particular job for a customer. The relevant information is as follow. 40 kilo of bricks will be used, £5 per kilo. Luis will need to work 2 hours and is paid £8 per hour. Ben will work 3 hours and is paid £8.50 per hour. Overtime is to be done if necessary, as the customer wants the job complete as soon as possible. Overtime is paid triple time. I hope all of us will remember the overtime is basically the extra. For example, if I said £8 per hour, how much will be the overtime for 1 hour? So total will be 24, but 8 will be the basic, 16 will be the overtime. Remember that. So overtime is triple time, doesn't mean if I said per hour is 8, so 24 is not the overtime. because 8 is the basic anyway. If I work 1 hour, I will get 8 anyway. So another 16 I'm getting extra. This is the overtime. Due to unforeseen complexities, Louis had to stay late on Tuesday and work 2 hours overtime to finish the job. So Louis basically worked 2 hours overtime. All right. Due to Ben cold, so Ben have a cold, he had to redo his work on Wednesday morning as he had not done it properly at the first time. So what happened? Ben was sick and he couldn't do it, and he do it again the same work. Remember, if the person do the same work again, he will get paid for the basic, not for the overtime. It's not overtime because you made some mistake, you couldn't finish the work, you come back to do the same work again. It's not the overtime. Overtime is something you cannot finish within the time you done something extra after that. But if you do the same work again, if you redo the work, that's not overtime. Ben had to use 10 kilo extra bricks to rework the job. So Ben used 10 kg of bricks extra. So our plan was 40 kilo, but actually we used 10 kilo extra. Ben doesn't normally have to rework his task, so it's not very normal. He never done it. Maybe he was sick, that's why he needs some extra time. All right, so let's complete this task. So we have a material, then we have a labor for Luis, for Ben, total overhead, that's it. So let's do that. So basically what we are looking for, total job cost. So let's try to do it together. We can do in the corner. So first we do the material. Material. The first thing is 40 kilo, that is issue 40 kilo, and per kilo is 5 pound. So how much should be the total? 200. Then we use 10 kilo extra, so 10 kilo times 5, and that gives me 50. That's for the material. Then we move to the labor. We have two labor here, Luis and Ben. First we do the Luis. How many hours he work? Very careful, don't give the 2 hour basic and 2 hour overtime. So it's basically 2 plus 2, 4 hours he worked total. So you're going to say basic hour will be 4. Basic hour will be 4. 4 times 8, and the 2 hours was overtime. Overtime 2 hours, and for that we multiply by 16 because overtime is a triple. Very, very careful. Do not multiply 2 hours with 24 because the 8 pound per hour is basic anyway. It's not the overtime. Overtime means anything from the basic to whatever you get. So we have 32 here for the 4 hours, and for the overtime I'm getting extra another 32. So let's close it later. We have a Ben as well. For the Ben, there is no overtime because Ben redo his work, so he will only get for the basic. So we said basic hour 3 hours, that is 850 per hour, and that gives me 2550. And we have rework. Again he used the same time, 3 hours, 8 pound 50 per hours, 2550. As he doing the same work again, he not gonna get the overtime. Okay, after that all you need to do is to add all of this. 200 plus 50 plus 32 plus 32 plus 2550 plus 2550, and that will give me the total cost. Can we have the total? How much is the total of that? So if we added 200 plus 250 plus 32 plus 32 and 25 25, the 365. All right, so 365. Very well done, Alicia. Very well done, Dee. Thank you. So we have this total 365. That's it. So let's move on. So we can move on now here and complete the table. So we have 40 kilo times 5, 210 kilo times 5, 50. For the labor, for the basic hour, for the Louis, 4 hours times 8, 2 hours times 16, 32. 32 for the Ben, 3 hours we have 8.5, that is 25.50, 3 times 8.50, 25.50, that gives me total 365. After that, they said we have overhead 200 pound per job, so we have to add 200, and that gives me the total job cost. Don't have to calculate the profit. The question said only calculate the total job cost, so that will be our 565. All right, so this is basically the total cost for this job. So obviously you can see this is not a very difficult thing. It's a really straightforward. Any question from here before we move to the next topic? Just like to understand, I can say the tricky bit here, the overtime. So if you understand that, there is no problem here. Okay, so let's move on. The batch costing. So let's read the definition of the batch costing. So batch costing is a costing system that gather together the cost of the production of an entire batch of a similar product in order to find the cost of each individual item in the batch. So basically, we're making everything on a batch. It's not like we're making one by one. So we make in a batch. So when we make a lot of identical, the same product at the same time, and after that, we try to find how much is the cost per unit. That is called batch costing. Then the cost per unit, we already know that cost of the batch divided by number of unit. For example, let's say if we make a box of pen, so if I make one box of pen, and in one box if I have a 10 pen, so obviously if I want to identify how much is the cost per pen, I said cost is 10, the cost will be in the top, and number of unit, let's say 10 unit, so the per pen will be £1. That's really simple, so we don't have to worry about it. That's quite understandable, because if I have the quantity, if I know the cost, I'll divide with that. Service organization is a costing system depend for the service function. We know this thing, cost per unit, so this is also something we already know. So there is nothing much here. I would say this is the end of the chapter. As I said, like the job costing is quite simple chapter and is hardly tested in the exam. So you don't have to worry too much from this chapter. We don't expect many questions. If even the question come in the exam, it's not more than 5 marks. So we have done today up to chapter number 7. So hopefully next week we're going to start from chapter number 8. And as I said, if you can read some chapter in advance, that will be wonderful, because when you do at the same time, that will start making more sense because you already read it. So you're not going to feel something is new. But if you do something first time, you feel like I'm having like something new. But another advantage is, very good advantage is, if you already read in advance, you can have some question for me. So you already identify the question. So if you think I'm not explaining that, and if I'm not explaining that, I'm going to the next step, you can always ask me that question. All right, so we're going to finish our lesson today here in chapter number 7. So we have another announcement for everyone.